Okay, I'd like to thank everybody who's joined us today. Didn't expect actually that everybody would turn up, well, basically 2 on time. I'm going to introduce the panel of speakers to you now, and I'd just like to remind everybody it's an informative meeting, okay? Nobody on this panel here necessarily voted for or against the predicament that some of us find ourselves in, okay? So ask away questions when it comes to questions and answers, and please respect the spaces where each speaker is going to give a few minutes of their time to give their or share their experience with you. I'd like to take this opportunity also to give a massive thank you to the British Embassy and the Consular Services of Malaga for arranging with me and Simon Manley, our British Ambassador, for him to join us here in Manilva, which is, in my opinion, a massive coup for every single one of us, and for the name of our town, and for Casares, who've joined us in the events in these events from the very beginning. So I'm going to now introduce everybody. On my far left, we've got Jose Carrasco. He is the mayor for Casares. We've got Carlos Jordan. He is the technical supervisor of tourism in representation of San Roque Ayuntamiento. We've got Mario Jimenez, our own mayor from Manilva. We've got Simon Manley, British ambassador to Spain. We've got Alex Radford, my lawyer, Spain, and in representation of the British Chamber of Commerce. We've also got Alba Valera Martinez, who is the regional manager South East, and Murcia for the Caixa Ola Bank. Then we've got Mayra Sopardi, that many of you may already know, who is the founder and president of Citizens Advice Spain. And lastly, at the end, we've got Katie Rawlings, better known to most of us that are from Manilva as Katie Wookie Gates. Okay, Katie was in our first meeting that we held immediately after Brexit, and also we felt was be valued as a person to the panel today. I'd also like to give thanks. We've got Charmaine, the consul, British consul, in the front row, and we've got the Vice Consul, Roslyn Cotti, as well. And as a guest VIP as well today, in the corner, we've got David Searle, who I believe everybody must know. And if you don't, you have never purchased your Spanish Bible. Okay, so David will be signing a few copies of his books if you'd like to visit him at the end. And last but not least, at the very end, we've got Jesus Rubiales, who is a World Guinness Book of Records Venenciador holder from 2005. He holds the title of pouring the typical Jerez wine, who you're all going to get the opportunity to try some Manilva wine and a nice bit of Spanish jamón. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to pass the word first to Jose Carrasco, the mayor of Casares, who's going to say a few words of welcome. Carlos Jordan from San Roque has kindly offered to do the translation. And then it will be Carlos talking on behalf of San Roque, and then Mario, your mayor from Manilva, who also will be translated for by Carlos. Thank you very much for giving me the time to speak.
Hola. Este funciona. Bueno, yo muy brevemente, buenas tardes, ya me han presentado. Agradecerle al embajador la visita que ha tenido, la distinción sobre la insistencia que ha tenido Dean. Agradecerle también a Mario, alcalde de Manilva, y a Dean, pues, que invite al Ayuntamiento de Casares, y nosotros hemos hecho extensión esta invitación a todos los británicos que comparten su tiempo, su espacio con nosotros, con los casareños. Por lo tanto, veo aquí algunas caras conocidas de algunos de los que estáis viviendo en Casares. Y bueno, yo creo que daros la bienvenida, mostrar nuestra disposición para los que estéis en Casares o para los que un día penséis estar. y mostrar a disposición del Ayuntamiento de Casares para, bueno, por si en algún momento os podemos ayudar sobre este tema que aquí nos toca. Nosotros lo que verdaderamente también queremos que esta tarde se despejen incertidumbres, y yo creo que aquí hay, con la visita del embajador, pues vamos a tener esa oportunidad de tener una voz, un portavoz del Gobierno de Inglaterra, y creo que para ustedes esto pues va a ser muy bueno. Nuevamente dar las gracias al embajador, al Ayuntamiento de Manilva y nuestra disposición al Ayuntamiento de Casares para lo que necesite. Buenas tardes. Gracias.
Right. Just basically, the Mayor of Casares has said that he's going to be brief, that he's delighted to be here with you, and he'd like to thank all the British people that have come today, and particularly the people that have come from Casares, that he's seen a few familiar faces, and that he'd like to thank Dean and the Manilva Town Council for counting on them to participate, and particularly to the ambassador, to Mr. Simon Manley, for coming, and that he feels very positive about this, and that he thinks that this event will help us clarify certain things about Brexit, and that it will mean that you know, the council at Casares is there to help you if you need it. And that's it. Thank you.
Bueno, me voy a poner de pie para que me veáis todos. Buenas tardes, señor embajador del Reino Unido aquí en España, Simon Miley, el alcalde de Casares, Pepe Carrasco, gracias por estar con nosotros. Adin Shelton Taylor, que está con nosotros también y ha organizado esto para que tengáis información de primera mano, y creo que es la persona más importante en España que os puede explicar cómo está la situación en este sentido. La tenemos hoy aquí en Manilva.
Right. Basically, the Mayor of Manilva has said that he'd like to thank the presence of the British Ambassador, Mr. Simon Manley, of the Consul, and the Mayor of Manilva, and that it obviously to Dean as the Councillor for Foreign Residents here in Manilva, and that it's very important for the area.
Bueno, y sobre todo gracias a vosotros por estar aquí para atender. Es un placer ver una sala llena. Es muy difícil hoy en día que se capte la atención de vosotros. Para nosotros, la comunidad británica en Manilva es muy importante porque sois la mayoritaria de los residentes extranjeros, sois el 40% de los residentes extranjeros en Manilva. Son casi 3.000 personas empadronadas de británicos en Manilva. Para nosotros sois muy importante, un colectivo muy importante y el que queremos atender siempre. Tenemos un gran concejal que está haciendo más que nunca por el colectivo vuestro, y yo creo que se está haciendo una labor también muy importante desde el ayuntamiento en este sentido.
Right. You said quite a lot there, so I've got to recap on that. Right. Well, anyway, he was saying that thank you to the British Ambassador, and particularly thank you to all the British community here. You make up 40% of the total population of Manilva, so you're very important to the municipality, and I think that's virtually about it. But have I missed something out? Yes, 3,000 people, yes, okay, yeah. I may have missed something else. I didn't write that down. Sorry.
Bueno, y quería terminar bueno, que es muy importante que estéis empadronados, que es importantísimo no solo para el ayuntamiento, sino para lo que recibimos de otras administraciones del Gobierno central y de la Junta de Andalucía. Vivir con nosotros, estamos encantados que estéis con nosotros, pero es muy importante que disfrutéis también de los servicios y de los descuentos que tienen los empadronados, y para eso os pido una vez más que si vivís con nosotros, disfrutad de todos los servicios y todo lo que ofrece Manilva, pero empadronados. Muchas gracias y que disfrutéis y os sea de mucha ayuda.
Right. One of the most important things is, as the Mayor said, to register on the census, and that will allow you to not only contribute towards the public services in the area, but also to get important discounts as registered citizens in the area. So he's implored you all to register if you haven't so far. And that is that in a nutshell, really. Okay, well, I'm going to be talking in English today. I'm half Welsh, half Spanish, as you probably know, and I work at the San Roque Borough Council. Although I look more Spanish, I'm actually Welsh, from Wrexham in northeast Wales. So anyway, I've been there for donkey's years now, and our area encompasses Soto Grande as well. So I'd like to give you a warm welcome to our area as well. And we have our own foreign residence office, which is part of the tourist office. And you're more than welcome to come along. And if anyone lives in the San Roque Soto Grande area, it's a vast territory. Count on us to help you in any way. On a personal basis, I'm British, so I'm going through the same things as you, but I'm a civil servant as well, so I don't know what my situation is going to be after Brexit, but I have this view that it's going to be good. We're going to overcome this. That the British government and the EU will come to a sensible agreement on this, and that there'll be bilateral agreements with the Spanish government. And anyone that works in Gibraltar, for instance, for anyone that works in Gib, that I'm sure that although there's been a lot of stuff in the tabloids and so on, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype, because a lot of it is a load of crap. Yeah, I'm from Wrexham, that's the way we talk. It's a load of crap. And when it comes down to it, common sense, the Spanish, the British, we've been to war together, but, we've got to come to a sensible agreement about things, and things will work well. We weren't in the EU before 1972, when I was born. And, well, who knows what the future holds for us, but I'm sure that we'll come to a great agreement with the EU and things will go well. So we've got to keep positive. So count on us, all of us, for any advice at all. Thank you.
Okay, so just before I pass you on to our star guest of the day, that's got every single answer to every single question you're going to make. I would also like to say there was another person that's not on the panel today, but on the VIP row, for want of a better term, who has also been doing a lot of work to help expats in Spain, and also in the questions and answers will be available to help you as well and answer some questions, and that's Ana Nandez from Brexpat Spain. So again, without further ado, I'm going to pass you on to the man with all the answers, Mr. Simon Manley, our British Ambassador to Spain.
Dean, thank you very much. I think you might have unduly raised expectations there. Nonetheless, it's a real pleasure to be here in Manila. Thank you so much, Dean, for the invitation to be here with you this evening. Thank you, each and every one of you who's come out this evening to pack this place this evening. I realise that there are many things to do on a beautiful spring evening in Manila, and this is perhaps not the most obvious one to be doing. So it's really important for me that you're here. Important because each and every time we have held one of these meetings, and we have held countless such meetings up and down Spain, from Bilbao to the Canary Islands, from the Balearics to Galicia. Each and every time we've held one of these meetings, we have learnt. We have genuinely learnt things from the British people who have come along. And this process has enriched our understanding of the challenges we face. It's enriched our negotiating position, and I hope it has allowed us to negotiate more successfully. Let me also quisiera agradecer a los alcaldes de Manilva, que están aquí, casados que están aquí con nosotros esta noche. Muchísimas gracias por su presencia, muchísimas gracias por su colaboración, ¿no? Dependemos de la colaboración con las autoridades locales y regionales, no solo ahora, pero en los años que vienen. I was wanting to thank the mayors, not just for being here, but for their collaboration, their daily collaboration with all of us, with our consular team, but for the collaboration that we'll need over the months and years to come as we take forward this process. Let me just very briefly tell you a little bit about where I think we are as of today. Yeah? And then what I would most like to do is to listen to you, listen to your questions, listen to your concerns about where we are with this process. So we meet here this evening at a very special moment because a few hundred miles away in Brussels, the heads of government of the 28 member states and the President of the European Commission, the President of the European Parliament, the President of the European Council are also meeting. And on their agenda are many things. The terrible attack in Salisbury, where we're very grateful for the support and solidarity of our European allies against the Russian threat, discussing jobs and growth, but they are of course also discussing Brexit. And we very much hope that this evening and tomorrow, the 27 other members of the European Union are going to bless the agreement which our negotiators reached on Monday of this week, announced by Secretary of State for exiting the European Union, David Davis, and the chief EU 27 negotiator, Michel Barnier, on behalf of the European Commission. An agreement which covers many things, but I want to sort of very briefly, just for those of you who perhaps haven't had the chance to follow us, explain what that agreement is about, what it does, and perhaps what it doesn't do. And to do so, you need to cast your mind back to December. And back in December at the European Council, we were in a rather similar position. Again, we reached an agreement amongst negotiators after days and weeks of negotiation, and then an agreement was blessed by our European partners. It's what is known as a political agreement. It was a political agreement that covered a number of areas, but three big issues in particular. And first and foremost was the issue of citizens' rights, because citizens' rights has been the priority issue, not just for the British government, but for the Spanish government, and I think governments right across the European Union, and for the European Commission, and indeed for the European Parliament. We recognise the uncertainty that the Brexit process has given rise to amongst British citizens living here and in other parts of the European Union, and of course also amongst the millions of EU citizens living in the United Kingdom. And so the agreement, the political agreement we reached in December, you'll remember, basically said that we would seek to guarantee the existing rights of those already living in the UK or Britons living in other member states of the European Union. The other two big issues in December were about our contribution to the EU budget, again, long fought over, and about the very tricky issue of Northern Ireland and how we will treat Northern Ireland in this process of leaving the European Union. And what we have been doing since December has been, first and foremost, to turn that political agreement into a draft legal treaty. And we have been doing that because by turning this into a legal treaty, which will, in due course, be ratified by member states, we are giving those agreements that we reached at a political level in December the force of international law. And I think that's really important for each and every one of you, for your compatriots living across the European Union, and for European citizens living in the UK. So one of the things that we'll be doing this evening and tomorrow morning is hopefully getting endorsement on that work we've done on that treaty. It's not a finished piece of work. There are some issues in that treaty which we still need to resolve. First and foremost amongst them, I should say, the issue of Northern Ireland, which is proving complex. We always knew it was going to be tricky, but it is proving complex. But our commitment, as you'll know, to find an agreement that respects the Good Friday Agreement, the Belfast Agreement, on the future of Ireland, absolutely critical to us in avoiding a physical border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. But it will enshrine your rights as citizens in a legal text. The second thing that we agreed earlier in the week with the European Commission negotiators, and we hope will be enshrined by and blessed by the European Council this evening, is what we sometimes call an implementation period, and which the European Union sometimes calls a transition period. And that will be the period that starts on the day that we leave the European Union, 20th of March 2019, and which will last until the end of December 2020, roughly a year and a half. A year and a half to prepare ourselves, all of us, not just the UK, but our European colleagues in the other 27 member states, for the future relationship. It's a period in which there will be continuity of EU law in all its aspects. The one difference, really, from the status quo, from today's situation, is the United Kingdom will not be a member of the European Union. We will not be participating in decision-making in the European Union. So we will be a law taker, not a lawmaker, during that period. But there will be continuity of European law, and others more expert in this can explain this in greater detail and greater sophistication than I can. But during that period, continuity. And in particular, in terms of citizens, we have agreed that for people arriving in the UK during that period, they will continue to enjoy all the same rights to study, to work, and to live as they would now, and that will be reciprocal for those arriving in EU member states. So that is a development from the agreement that we reached in December. And the third part of the agreement which we reached earlier in the week, and which again we hope to be blessed tonight and tomorrow, is not actually really something that we are going to be blessing. It is a series of principles or orientations for the other members of the European Union about how they will conduct the negotiation with the UK about the future relationship. That is to say, about what will happen after we leave and after the end of this transition period from the beginning of 2021 and henceforth. And that's important because it's not much use having a transition period unless you know what it is you're transiting to. And what we want, as you'll know, is a very close, positive and strong relationship with the European Union at the level of people, at the level of business, with the least possible barriers to those seeking to trade, export, invest between the UK and the European Union, at the level of security, where we hope to maintain the collaboration, the very close collaboration which we have across Europe, and nowhere more so than here in Spain, with European security forces, with European police forces, but also in areas like education, like culture, like research and development. We hope to work to see how much of that we can continue to collaborate in the years to come. So that third part is the start of a process that will begin in the next few days and weeks to try and frame the future relationship between the UK and the EU. And just to pick up on one point that Carlos mentioned, of course, about Gibraltar, and I know of importance to some of you here, some of you who may be working in Gibraltar, who may have friends or family who work in Gibraltar. This implementation period will apply to Gibraltar. That is our clear legal view. We voted as one United Kingdom to leave the European Union, including the people of Gibraltar. We are negotiating as one United Kingdom, and we will leave as one United Kingdom. And we all recognise the vital importance of the fluidity of the border. And that, I have to say, is of a shared interest of the government of Gibraltar, with whom we are in the most daily contact. Every day we are talking to the government of Gibraltar about how we take forward this process. But it is also a shared interest of the government of Spain, because, as you'll know, 8,000 Andalusians, many of them living in San Roque, cross the border every day to work. So all three governments are absolutely committed to ensuring that that can continue to be the case in the future, and we're working hard to make sure that that is indeed the case. I don't think you probably need to hear any more from me, but thank you again for being here. I look forward to listening to your questions and, where I can, to answering them.
Okay, I think the message was really clear, so as long as your list of questions is no more than 5 each, we should be able to get through them quite rapidly. I'd now like to pass you on to Alex Radford, my lawyer Spain, and in representation of the British Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much, Dean and fellow mayors, for organising the event tonight, following on from the 2 years previous successful events. Thank you, Simon, for attending, as always, and being very open and honest about your thoughts, and we look forward to grilling you with those questions later on. From the British Chamber of Commerce in Spain's perspective, basically the British Chamber of Commerce in Spain was created and formed in 1908 in Barcelona, and the prime rationale behind that was to promote bilateral trade between Spain and the UK. More than 100 years later, that objective is still the same. 1 year after Brexit, the United Kingdom became the most important foreign investor in Spain by creating more than 183,000 jobs and brought in 6.6 billion euros to the Spanish state's economy. So, as you can imagine, we are an enormous player in the negotiations with Spain, and Spain have what I'd say is probably more of a sympathetic ear to perhaps some of our other European neighbours. The Chamber's priorities to the Brexit negotiations are that there continues to be freedom of movement of people and goods, that the City of London is not penalised by Europe, and that free trade agreements can be reached quite quickly with countries outside the EU and, of course, with the EU. Also, there should be no discrimination for corporate taxation against UK companies operating within Europe. It's been encouraging from the Chamber's point of view to see this week that during the transition period, the UK will be able to sign free trade agreements with countries outside the EU, and they will remain part of the single market and the customs union. From my law in Spain hat, as an English solicitor and Spanish abogado, who've lived in Spain for 28 years. I attend on a regular basis the Place in the Sun live exhibition in the UK. This weekend it was in Manchester. More than 6,000 people came through the door looking at buying a foreign property, and 60-70% of those were interested in Spain. Some of them were asking questions about Brexit, but most importantly, they want to come to Spain and enjoy the dream that all of you and I are enjoying, and Simon, in Spain. But clients owning property in Spain, their concern was taxation, how much taxation and healthcare. So I'm glad, we're glad we've reached an agreement and progress on the issue of healthcare. But what we still haven't got, Simon, is, for example, when clients, British owners who don't live in Spain sell their property, they pay 19% capital gains tax. And, for example, an American would pay 24% capital gains tax. What will be the position when we leave? It'll be interesting to see. This is information we've already fed back. Will British people living in Spain continue to enjoy personal inheritance tax allowances, which are currently available for Spanish nationals? All this information, as I said, we've fed back to the British consulate, and I'm certain they will be raised in negotiations. Thank you very much.
Just very quickly, I'll present Álvaro Valera Martínez from Hola Bank, La Caixa.
Gracias, Dean. Buenas tardes a todos, señoras y señores, señor embajador de la Gran Bretaña, señores alcaldes de Manilva y Casares y resto de miembros del panel. Es un placer estar con ustedes. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's a great pleasure to be with you here tonight. Just a few words about CaixaBank. I'm pretty sure you know the bank fairly well by now. With me is together tonight Isabel Navarro, who is our local bank manager. She's over there. So if you need any help, you can speak to her afterwards, of course. And just briefly, because today is not about CaixaBank or Hola Bank, it's about Brexit, and we have the great pleasure of hosting today this event with the ambassador. Just briefly to say that CaixaBank has been for many, many years, more than 50 years, working together with British customers in Spain. As of today, we got like 120,000 British who trust CaixaBank with their custom. And we provide, all kind of financial services you can need in Spain, from bank accounts to mortgages to savings accounts, or our internet banking is in English, as I guess many from you know, because I guess some of you are banking with us already. And just last but not least, what it makes CaixaBank a bit different to other banks in Spain and in Europe is our foundation. One of the reasons why we're here tonight is because we are sponsoring this event. We feel very, very proud of doing it, of course. And CaixaBank Foundation, which is called Obra Social, it's very important to us when we work, as we do very hard every day for the bank. We feel fine knowing that a very important part of the profits generated by the bank are allocated towards social and welfare projects, not only in Spain, but in developing countries, in Southern America, in Africa and Asia. And this is really important because the amount that is invested or spent in those social and welfare projects is more than 500 million a year. And CaixaBank has been doing this for more than 10 years now. And that makes CaixaBank's foundation the third largest private foundation in the world, only behind to the Wellcome Trust and Bill Gates Foundation. No other bank in Spain or in Europe can say something like this. So just a little difference, but obviously we want to do business with you if that is possible. We welcome British customers, we always did, and we'll keep welcome you. Nothing has changed so far as CaixaBank relationship with the British markets is concerned, nothing at all. We welcome you as always, so we are here for you, myself and my colleague Isabel. Anything you need, just talk to us, okay? Thank you.
And now pass the word to Mayra Asopardi of Citizens Advice Spain. Thank you.
Hello. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit. If you wish me to stand up, I will. The reason I'm going to sit is, for once, I'm going to read my notes. Because, as you know, I'm a senior advisor with Citizens Advice Bureau, and our concern are citizens. We will leave Ireland and the other two matters to those. I want to expand a little bit on what our ambassador has spoken about on the latest agreement. I think it's important because we're getting asked this question all the time. I was in Manchester with Alex and the questions cropped up there. And basically, as we know, it's the draft agreement. It's agreement on the withdrawal of United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland from the European Union on March 2019 with a transition period, again, as Mr. Manley said, ending December 2020. In that agreement, and it states now, because a lot of people say we don't know anything, and if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. And this has gone on from December 8th. It's just the same agreement, maybe a little bit more complex, and I'm actually concerned this time. Last time I was very positive, because it says the colouring of the text corresponds, and this is the green text on citizens' rights, and it's mainly green, or all of it's green. The colouring of the text corresponds to the following meanings. Text in green is agreed at negotiators' levels and will only be subject to technical legal revisions in the coming weeks. So I think they're saying this is it. Basically, it can still change, but I've communicated with both the Michel Barnier team and with the Brexit steering group in the hope that we could have our concerns passed on to them, but it seems that the proposal, it remains as the December proposal. And of course, this thing refers to all of us, workers, blah, blah, without having to go UK nationals who have exercised their rights to reside in a member state in accordance with union law before the end of the transition period and consider and continue to reside thereafter. So, you know, it's workers, students, family members, and those with no need to work, such as pensioners. And we're being told that we're being told in this agreement, and I am going to pick at it actually, because I've never been known for staying quiet on things. The host state may not impose any limitations and conditions other than those provided for in this title on the persons aforementioned in retaining or losing citizens' residence rights. I suppose nobody thought, we've all been told we're not going to lose residence rights, but this is written into this agreement. Spain has the right to ask that we apply for a different model of the registration certificate residency. Why should they? Why should they? I'll tell you why they should or could. The UK government insisted in that settled status for EU citizens would have to be applied for, considering that the UK did not apply the EU Directive 2004/38. After this, I'll call it the Directive. So the majority of EU citizens are not in possession of a registration certificate such as we are, and will have to apply for settled status. It's what we know as permanent status. And number two, why should they ask us to come up with a new, I'm not saying they will, they don't have to, but number two is our registration certificate clearly states that we're inscribed on the register for citizens of the European community. Obviously, we will not meet the criteria after the end of the transition period unless UK has a sudden desire to take on the models of Norway or Switzerland. So, number three, the UK and now EU are asking for the agreement on citizens' rights to be reciprocal. I work, and Katie does, but I'm very involved with the Spanish bureaucracy on residency, and I think a lot of you will know some of the problems we already have, and that's just updating for your permanent residence certificate, which a lot of the officers think that the A4 green certificate is only valid for 5 years. That's nonsense. They're confusing this with non-EU law. Okay. So why am I considered? We could consider the agreement states that those who chose to avail of freedom of movement directives and are legally residents in Spain can stay. That should suffice, but does it? Taking number two above, about us being on the wrong register after the transition period, it would make sense that Spain will rightly opt for to be reciprocal and as asked for by the UK and drafted in the agreement, which means that we change our documents. Again, those that work in this system who work with the Spanish bureaucracy on residency will know that that's likely to happen. I have letters where they did a systematic check on residents. The Ministry of the Interior did systematic checks on residents to see if they still had the right for ongoing residency. That was against the regulations at that time, but at that time, right of permanent residence, we all know about that. United Kingdom nationals and respective family members who have resided legally in accordance with union law for a continuous period of 5 years in the host state or duration specified in the directive shall have the right to reside permanently in the host state under the conditions sent out in certain articles, okay, in the directive. All those, and also at the end of the transition period, shall be included in the calculation of qualifying period necessary for those who do not have the right of permanence. And it includes Articles 16 and 21, that comes from the Freedom of Movement Directive. Okay, so I think there's a confusion here when this was drafted. I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer and I'm only a paralegal, but I've been following this, the negotiations since 24th of June, the day after the... So with one hand we're saying we can legally stay and the right of permanent resident, we all know about that, 5 years for most of us, some of us 3 years if we've been working and then we've retired or you've had an accident at work. Right. This is what we committed to in Article 16, because further on I will tell you what we're being asked to do. In Article 16 we committed this, And I'm a real believer in retaining not our citizens, not our EU citizenship. If we can't have that unless we're a member of a European member state, that's quite clear in the treaty. But we committed to Article 16, which is brought up in this withdrawal agreement, and it says Union citizens who have resided legally for a continuous period of 5 years in the host member state shall have the right of permanent residence there. This right shall not be subject to the conditions provided for in Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is where we had to show our residency thing, income, the right to reside, because you know all the things we had to show when we first applied for our residency. This is what it says here. When we want to become a permanent resident, because it's in the database, unless they believe we're going to be a burden on the state, we shouldn't have to supply all those documentation. And it says quite clearly in Article 16 that we gained our residence from. So it shall apply, and to family members who are not nationals of member state and have legally resided. Once acquired, this is what we signed up to, once acquired, the right of permanent residence shall not be lost only through absence from the host member state for a period exceeding 2 consecutive years. It's going to be 5 years now, which is good. But this is what we were told, it would not be lost, okay? So, and also that permanent residents do not have to jump through hoops. I think we know that. I think that we've had that problem with people going, and we know the right of permanent residence after 3 years. I'll ignore Article 21 because that's worrying, and I don't want to worry people. So the withdrawal agreement states, once acquired, the right of permanent residence shall be lost only through absence from the host state for a period exceeding 5 consecutive years. But it goes on to say, I'm sorry I'm taking a long time. Katie's given me a couple of her minutes. The issuing of residence documents. The host state again may require United Kingdom nationals, their respective family members, to apply for a new resident status. Remember the reciprocal thing? What they must do in the UK, we should do here, plus we're on the wrong register, which confers the rights under this title, which is agreement and a document evidencing such statement that may be digital. We could have a card, you know, we could have a digital one, that's good. But applying for, this is what I'm concerned about, and I want other people to help us, especially the administrative officers, our consulates, right, applying for such a residence status shall be subject to the following conditions. I hope you're following me. The application procedure shall verify whether the applicant is entitled to residence rights set out in this title. We're talking about permanent or non-permanent residence. Where that is the case, the applicant shall have a right to be granted the residence statement and the document evidencing it. The host state shall ensure the administrator is simple and process. We all know about that in Spain, don't we? It should be very simple and straightforward and transparent. Right. And also persons who before that resident term, that time will be allowed to work towards or attain their permanent residence. Those of us with permanent or non-permanent will have to have, if it's reciprocal, we'll have criminality and security checks. And these may be carried out systematically on applicants with the exclusive aim of verifying whether restrictions set out in Article of this agreement may be applicable. You shouldn't worry, well, we should only worry that apparently in the UK, and somebody else can correct me now, your records are there for 100 years. I think up to 2006 or something, they were struck off. But apparently, even if you've not been found guilty, they can be there. I'm just thinking about the Spanish administrative officers. I think a lot of you may know what I'm trying to say is how they're going to look at this criminality check and think, oh, you stole a bun when you were at school, you can't stay. So we've got to be prepared. As I say, UK holds information going back 100 years. And also, really, conduct of United nationals' conduct or their family members or other person exercising rights with anything that occurred before, like there's a crime. So we're going to be asked to show, we may be asked to show the criminality record, but we should know that Spain would go, oh yes, you stole that bun. But remember that the actual reason to expel you, or EU citizens then, were only on the grounds of public policy or public security or health hazard. So we have to know about that when we're going to the officers, if we're going to check our and I'm nearly finished, because ongoing residency, besides a valid passport ID document, the host state can also ask you to provide everything found in the directive of Article 8.3. And making it short, that's civil status documents, that you're married, or your workers' proof of continued employment, economically inactive persons, evidence that they have sufficient resources for themselves and their family members not to become a burden on the Social Security assistant. This is what the Ministry of the Interior was doing in 2015. I have the proof of it. They were mainly pensioners, and they all did have the right. The host state, during the period of residence, that you have comprehensive sickness insurance cover, students' proof of the usual enrollment in a school, healthcare and all that. Citizens Advice Bureau concerns, and it's mainly mine because I deal with Brexit and residency. I want to ask why. I want to ask the Spanish authorities that are not here, the administrative, that if this should happen, permanent resident is granted in the European directive without having to show all these documents I've listed once you've been a resident. You are granted that residency because you're a permanent resident. Here you go, change my document. We've done that. Why are we going to lose? Losing European citizenship is one thing, but losing I don't know how we can lose an acquired right to residency. I'm not saying we're going to, but this is a possibility, and I'd rather shout now than later. Okay, so to me, the application of a new status is paramount to the removal of the acquired right of residence that we've already got. Okay? A good thing, I'll end on a good thing, we'll have the right of entry, exit and entry with with no visas, etc. Also, as Alex mentioned, they've removed Article 32 from that, which means that we have right of movement in other. And I'm sorry, I know I've gone a long time. So with the knowledge of the Spanish bureaucratic system and problems of many residency applications, including continuing residents over the years, add the systematic illegal checks on residents of 2015. So I do not envisage a simple and transparent transition for all UK nationals. Katie will talk about why you should get your papers in order. It seems like EU now, though they were saying citizens have agreed to this reciprocal sort of agreement. So I ask for the administrative officers, the British Embassy and consuls to understand that it is a Citizens Advice Bureau where citizens turn to for information, guidance and assistance, and that will recognise and support us in this endeavour. I ask that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm passing you over to Katie Rawlins, Break in Spain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Myra, and all of my fellow speakers. And also thank you, everyone, who is a really good turnout. I feel very honoured to have been invited to talk. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Katie from Breaking Spain, as Dean said. Katie Rawlins is my given name, but my nickname is Katie Wookie, so I am also down as Katie Wookie on the flyer. I'm going to keep it really short now. I did say Myra could have not all of my minutes, some of my minutes, but I'll keep it really, really brief. The main things I just want to talk about is, obviously, I've heard this phrase batted about quite a lot, that nothing is decided until it is decided, and obviously we're in a negotiation process at the moment. So, you know, things have been agreed recently, obviously, but we're still not at the final stage and nobody really knows. I am talking to the administrative offices on a daily basis and trying to glean what information I can, but obviously nothing's been set in stone. The main thing I want to say is there are some people live here and are on the Padron, empadronados, that was mentioned before. Really important that if you're not on it, you do register on it, because it's for everybody's benefit and good. But also there are quite a lot of people who live here full-time or most of the year that haven't registered as resident yet. And I just think it's imperative that if you've been sitting on the fence and wondering whether to do it or not, or that you do get that done before the Brexit date of March 2019. Apparently we could have this transitional period, but obviously in the case of no deal or no transitional period, until December 2020. I just think it's advisable to get it done now, particularly if, obviously, I, through my business, Breaking Spain, helping expats with many different processes here, I can help you for a very reasonable fee. But the Town Hall of Manilva also offer a wonderful service for free where they'll fill in the forms and advise you on the necessary paperwork and book you the appointment, but you don't get to sit in the police station with me for an hour. So just however you do it, if you are thinking of doing it, please do it. And if you're thinking of doing it with me, please don't call me on the 28th of March 2019 asking for an appointment at the police station, because they've already got a month's waiting list, and I'm already thinking of block booking quite a lot of appointments for that period. So they have said that it is meant to be an easy transition, because obviously people who are resident at the moment, British people here, have an EU residency card, and we're going to stop being EU. So I have heard also that that is meant to be made easy for us. I, prior to the Brexit, had several customers from outside of Europe, from America, the Philippines, and someone once who was from Equatorial New Guinea, that I don't even really know where that is, but I know it's outside of Europe, so I know the paperwork for it. I have to charge those customers a lot more than I charge British or EU nationals, unfortunately, because it's more or less the same process, that you have to prove income, you're not going to be a burden on the state, etc., that you've got access to healthcare. But a lot more of the paperwork needs translating. It's a lengthier process. And in the case of people who live locally, we have to go all the way to Malaga for that, for the Foreigners Office, instead of just Estepona, our nearest national police station currently. Which, by the way, if more people got on the Padron in Manilva, I believe we could have a national police station here. And that would be fantastic for me. I'd love to just go up the road to Manilva instead of having to drive to Estepona every day. Be better for my car also. And speaking of cars, because I'm going to wrap this up now, another service that I provide, again, for a very reasonable fee, is putting foreign plated cars onto Spanish plates. I've done, again, quite a few random nationalities, but mainly UK cars. Also, because we live so close to Gibraltar, I've done, in 10 years of putting cars on Spanish plates, I've probably given thousands of quotes out, and I've been asked quite a few times, maybe a couple of hundred times, to do quotes on Gibraltarian plated vehicles, because obviously we live quite near there and a lot of people are working there and living here. I'll give you an example of a quote I did recently. If this car had been a UK car, it was a 2006 Ford Mondeo, including the tax that it has to pay to be imported and my fees and all the administrative bureaucratic fees, ITV costs, headlights, etc., it would have cost the customer about, with headlights as well, probably €1,000. My quote for just everything apart from the headlights for this exact same car on a Gibraltarian plate was €4,400. So he really could have just bought probably a 2006 Spanish Ford Mondeo for probably 4,000. So potentially that is going to happen to UK plated cars after the Brexit date. I'm not 100% on that, nobody is, but certainly speaking to Trafico, I've been advised to advise that to my customers, because of all the quotes I've ever done before in that scenario, nobody's ever gone ahead, because obviously it's more than what the car's worth. So I'm thinking that could be the case. So again, if you've got, and I'm not just saying this to drum up business for myself, I promise I'm busy enough. Honestly, anyone who knows me knows I'm always moaning about how much I work. So I'm definitely not doing it as a plug for my business. But if you do have a UK plated car here, definitely think about doing that sooner rather than later, or taking it back to England. I'm not going to force you to do it, but I think in April 2019, I've got a feeling the Guardia Civil will be out in force on the roadside stopping foreign plated vehicles. So in that sort of scenario, by the way, it happens currently anyway to foreign plated cars. A lot of people call me after they've been stopped by the police and given a fine and made to put the car on Spanish plates. Whether you decide to do that or not, normally you're liable for that tax when they've stopped you at the roadside. So when we're talking €850 for a UK plate, overnight potentially it could be a lot more money. So I just think anyone who's been umming and ahhing and wondering whether to get their paperwork in order or not, please do it before March 2019. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello? Hello? Right. Okay. Just going to bore you for a few more seconds and make you listen to me. Okay. A lot of you are used to hearing me go on about certain things with regards Padron, police, and what have you. So I'm just going to clarify a few details. When we're talking about Padron, you must do it. We need you to get on the Padron. No matter if you're from Jimena, you should go on the Padron in Jimena, Casares, Manilva, Manilva, San Roque, wherever you actually live, get on the Padron. The sooner, the better, for all sorts of reasons. I'm not going to go into them because you all know them and they're all written on a piece of paper that was on your chair. But yes, we could have a national police station, and one of our biggest problems locally, which I'm going off pat a little bit, is security locally. We have a local police force that basically is doing the job of a Guardia Civil station or a national police station. The amount of local police we have, we can't contract more because we can only employ 2 per 1,000 population. We have 16,000 now, but up until now we've had 15. So that means we've got 30 police officers to cover 24 hours a day. And you take out holidays and illness. If we're lucky, we've got 5 police officers on beat to cover Manilva, Sabanillas, Castillo, Duquesa Port, the urbanisations and all of the countryside. We're not getting there. We've got a Guardia Civil station, which is non-existent. They close at 1:30 in the afternoon. Both of our mayors are fighting tirelessly with the government, who's responsible for giving us a proper security service. And as I say, I know I'm going off, Pat, but this is really important. If we had a population of 23,000, we could demand a national police station, okay? Right now, officially, we're at 16,000-ish. We need 23,000 to demand a national police station. The gap sounds massive, but we know through water consumption, which is a municipal service that, okay, it's contracted out, but we know from the statistics of water consumption, we know through recycling bins, the consumption in general of rubbish, that we've got a population in Manilva of anything between 25 to 30,000. Okay, so we can do it. There's a lot of people that will live here, work in Gibraltar, and they think that, oh, I don't want to go on the system because, you know, they think they may be getting away with an extra few pounds of tax. I don't know. Please consider going on the Padron. You're not doing yourself any favours by not doing. Before we go into the questions and answers as well, I just wanted to say yet again, I'm really, really, really appreciative of all of you turning up today and supporting this event. They're not easy to organise, not easy to put on. And de nuevo, me gustaría dar agradecimiento por el continuado apoyo de mi alcalde Mario Jiménez y el alcalde de Casares, Pepe Carrasco, my complete support of our 2 mayors, local mayors of Mario Jiménez, and the support that they give me, and Pepe Carrasco from Casares, and also from San Roque. We've always got a representation in Carlos Jordan. They make these things possible, and they and we are here to help you. Obviously, you know, we can't micromanage every single individual's case. You know, it's not something that we can do. But we are there in general terms, and in some cases, well, we can go that extra bit of a distance. So anyway, I'd like to start the questions and answers, and also remind you, besides the people on the panel here, we also have Mr. David Searle present. We have Anne Hernandez of Brexpats, and we also have the consular services in the form of Charmaine and Roslyn, and who else have we got? No, that's it. That's not on panel. So, okay, starting out the questions and answers, does anybody have any questions for anybody? So your name is, sir? Frank Treble.
I live up the road in Galsin, and basically I just want to know, will I retain this after Brexit? This is our health card. So I've got a health card, I'm on the system here, I'm a resident. Will we keep these after we leave the EU?
So who would you like to answer that question?
as the ambassador? Because I keep hearing something about a 5 years qualifying period.
So, I'm assuming yes is a simple answer to that question, and others may have their own views, but my answer is yes, because the deal that we have come to, both the deal in December, the deal that we're now reflecting in a legal text, is that as British nationals resident here in Spain, you will continue to enjoy the same rights to healthcare, social services, and the rest as you currently do. Now, whether you need that particular card or whether you'll get a different card, I can't tell you as of now, but your right to healthcare will be the same, yeah? Could I just reinforce a point that Dean made, and it's about the Padrón. And I don't want to judge whether all of you are on the Padrón or some of you, but what he says is absolutely true. Absolutely true. If there's one piece of advice that I can give to each and every one of you and to pass it on to your friends, your neighbours, your family, is please, please, please get yourselves on the Padrón. As others have explained, it means more resources for the towns and villages in which you live. It gives us a better picture of the numbers of British nationals living here in Spain, and it also shows that you have been resident here in Spain. So, in terms of your future rights, it is a greater guarantee of continuity than anything else you can do as an individual.
Thank you. John. Sorry, could you state your name and who you would like to direct your question to particularly? Or the general panel?
Yeah, direct it to anybody really. What I want to know, you were talking about the health form. Now, for people that aren't residents, we're only here we're under 6 months a year, and we are on the 111. What will happen to that?
Myra? Citizens Advice.
E111 is now the EHIC, as you know, the European Health Card. UK government has reassured people or said that it wants to come up, if we lose the European Health Card, insurance card, that it wants to come up with a similar card to that. That would be your healthcare. If you're living here more than 90 days, it's your obligation to take out residency to go on the Padrón. It's not 6 months, the 183 days, and the 184th day, you're a tax resident. So again, we're not insisting you do anything, but 90 days after that, it's your obligation to take out residency, and you can be sanctioned if you don't, small fine. And also on the healthcare thing, it's an agreement between Spain and the UK, not an EU directive. And I think that the UK government should shout that out more, because it is an agreement between Spain and the UK. So that gives us confidence on that. And plus what UK has said, what the ambassador has said.
Also, Mr. Simon Manley would like to say a few words on the same issue.
So just on this issue of EHICs, yeah? Just to be clear and just to kind of reinforce Myra's message. So on EHICs, as we call them, European Health Insurance Cards, in the course of the negotiations, reflected in the December agreement, now reflected in treaty language as the basis for an international treaty, we have agreed to protect the rights of individuals who are here in Spain and entitled to a UK EHIC card to continue to benefit from that scheme for as long as their situation continues. That includes tourists for the duration of their stay, students for the duration of their course, and UK nationals resident in another member state. Continuity. All this, the whole corpus of the agreements reached in December and the agreements which we've reached this week are all reciprocal. That's the whole basis for the negotiation, and that's why in some areas it's proven difficult, because some areas perhaps the UK government hasn't been prepared to do as much as others have been prepared to do, and in some areas the EU has not been prepared to go as far as we have been willing to go as a UK government. And one of those issues is about onward movement rights. But take as a basic principle, everything that applies in Spain applies in the UK.
Do you mind, sorry that I keep coming in, to say on this, remember that the UK government did a wonderful thing in April, I think, of 2016. So state pensioners who reside in Spain, when they go to UK, they no longer need the EHIC, they can use their S1. They're to be treated as though they were residents in the UK when you visit there. So, best of both worlds. I think it's marvellous. And remember those who also worked in the UK, pensioners but worked in the UK, but worked in Spain and claimed their pensions from here, they will not apply for the EHIC, they'll apply for the Spanish TSC. Not over, because we're leaving the EU. A lot of things are already in law, so, and you'll have the right to have a tarjeta sanitaria Europea, which is the same as the EH. That's if you've worked in it, because I know we have some people here that are taking their pensioners here. So not everything is over for us. Remember, we're residing in an EU state, member state. Sorry.
Could you state your name and who you'd like to direct the question at, please?
Brian Forgey. I'd like to speak a question to the Ambassador. You stated that the 27 member states were meeting this weekend, or this next few days, and that the language so far has been very positive from them and from the British government. Is it also not possible that with the 27 member states and all the British government, this entire thing could fall to bits and we could just basically drop out of the EU? That has been threatened and has been mentioned several times. If that unlikely event happens, what happens to us? And what happens to Gibraltar?
Well, we are not negotiating to that end. Yeah, we are negotiating to get a deal. Look, you know, as I said, this evening, tomorrow morning, we hope to take a major step forward by underlining the progress made on a withdrawal treaty, international treaty, on agreeing in implementation period of over a year and a half, and of the EU27 agreeing the principles which are going to underpin their negotiation on a future agreement. You know, as is right and proper, the government is having to look at contingency measures that would put in place if no deal were reached. But that is absolutely not our intention, and I don't think on the basis of the progress that we've been making in recent weeks and months, that is at all likely to happen.
Hello? Yeah, I accept that, yeah, I understand that, but the 27 member states have to ratify and the British government have to ratify. And some of the noises that I've been listening to coming out of Westminster from various factions of different political parties, some of them are not happy about the progress made so far. And some of the other member states, the 27 member states, some of their factions are not happy and they do have a veto. So my question is, if, and it's an unlikely if, but if, has the British government got some contingency plan in place if this happens?
Yes, but we're negotiating to get a deal.
Hello, could you state your name and who you would like to direct your question at, please?
My name is Anne Hayes. I live up in Casares. And probably it's a question for the Ambassador. It's a completely different subject now. Pensions. I'm one of those who's been unlucky and I've had the goalpost moved for my state pension, but my husband is a pensioner. A lot of Commonwealth countries have their pensions frozen at the time that people leave the country. Is that likely to happen to us as well?
No.
Good. Okay, that's fine.
So just to expand ever so slightly. So I said at the beginning, sorry, I want to stand up actually. I said at the beginning that we had found these meetings that we had had across the breadth of Spain really useful in understanding the concerns of British people living here in Spain, and they have enabled us to enrich our negotiating position, and in many cases have allowed us to develop our policy. And in the case of pensions, this is an area where our policy has duly developed because of what we have been reporting here from Spain and what my colleagues across Europe have been reporting about the concerns of British nationals living across the European Union. And you're absolutely right to say that under current EU law, British nationals who live inside the European Union have their pensions updated each year in line with inflation. But British pensioners who live outside the European Union, whether it be in the Commonwealth, the United States, or wherever, do not enjoy that. And the British government has taken the decision that British pensioners living inside the remaining 27 member states of the European Union will continue to have their pensions upgraded in line with inflation after we depart from the European Union.
Hello? Okay, can you state your name and who you would like to direct your question at, please?
Obviously, the question for the ambassador. Again, you're going to be questioned out soon. My name is Joni Burnett. I'm a chartered community administrator and I'm on the board of directors in Malaga, and I'm responsible for the foreign residence department for the college in Malaga. I've got two questions. One is regarding dual nationality, if that is a possibility, if it's being considered. Okay. And the second question is regarding professionals in Spain, because although normal employees will carry on having employee rights, for professionals it's a completely different situation, because in order to register as a chartered administrator, a doctor, an accountant, etc., you need to be a Spanish resident, Spanish national, or a EU national, or be from a country with an economic agreement with the EU to be able to act as a professional. I consider it would be a huge loss for Spain if all the British professionals here are wiped out, because it's a huge service that we provide to the British nationals, being able to explain things in their own language and solve issues. So the second one is actually a very important aspect that does need to be considered as well, and to see where that lays at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Joe. I agree with you on the importance of the services sector. To take those questions, the question of dual nationality. The United Kingdom has no problem whatsoever with people having dual nationality. You can be British, Spanish, British and Portuguese, British and anything you like. You can be British, Spanish and Portuguese if you want. You can be British, Spanish, Portuguese and French. Oh my goodness, okay, fair enough. However, Spain has a slightly different policy, as you'll know. And Spain does not permit dual nationality, not as a general rule. There are countries with which Spain allows dual nationality, but I'm afraid member states of the European Union, well, certainly the United Kingdom, is not one of them. And so I know that many of you have been pressing for that policy to be changed. And that's entirely your right, and we have no problem with you doing so. We are not pressing the Spanish government to make that change. And the reason we're not pressing the Spanish government to make that change is because our focus is on ensuring that each and every British citizen living in Spain, regardless of their willingness or ability to acquire Spanish nationality, continues to enjoy the rights that they currently enjoy as a British citizen living in Spain. So that's been a kind of a policy decision on our part. We just think the best option for us as a government is to focus on your rights as a current EU citizen and replicating those rights in the years to come. On mutual recognition of qualifications, what we have agreed, I just want to be kind of precise about the terms in which we've agreed this, but what we have agreed, again reflected in December and in the new agreement this week, is that we continued recognition of qualifications where that recognition decision, where those recognition decisions were received or where recognition procedures were ongoing before we leave the European Union. So as to say, if you are already recognised, then that's fine. So I mean, there are qualifications about what that means for future recognition. Students who are currently in university acquiring qualifications, or people who might come to Spain in the future with those qualifications, which I can go into. But if you are, as I understand, in your situation, somebody whose professional qualification is currently recognised, there will be continuity of recognition of that qualification in the future. So you can continue to offer your services for the years to come.
So, Dean, can I just pick up on something? Just from a legal perspective, I've lived in Spain for 28 years, and one of the things when the Brexit event happened, when the referendum result came through, I did think about taking up Spanish nationality, but I was actually put off by that, and I'll tell you why. Under UK inheritance laws, we as British passport holders have free disposition of assets, so you can leave your assets to whoever you want. If you take out Spanish nationality, you have to leave 2/3 of your assets to your children, and you can only freely dispose of 1/3. If you took out Spanish nationality and you had dual nationality, which, as Simon said, is allowed under UK law but not frowned upon by the Spanish regulations, if you lived in Spain and then basically, and you died, for example, without a will, then Spanish inheritance tax laws would apply to you. So there could be a very interesting conflict of laws between UK inheritance tax law and Spanish inheritance tax laws when it comes to people who have dual nationality.
I'm just going to amplify, because I've got a question on exactly the same subject. And I've directed it, Alex, with what you've just said, with that possible complication. Sorry. How would that fit, though? Because at the end of the day, you might have a dual nationality, but you can only be fiscally resident in one country. So surely with that fiscal residency, it's a question for you to answer, would that fiscal residency allow you to clarify that situation in the case of inheritance?
Okay, well, first of all, if you live in Spain for more than 183 days a year, then you have a legal obligation to present your tax return in Spain the year after you arrive. If you live in Spain for less than 183 days, you don't have that obligation, so you retain your UK or home country residency status. If you had 2 passports and you lived in Spain, then your Spanish passport basically takes prime position over the UK passport. Okay, so in effect, the Spanish inheritance tax laws would apply to you. Okay.
Sorry, the question wasn't so much for me, it was an amplification for all of you.
Okay, so really I was just answering the question back there and just adding the comments, but you're right. Under basically, this is quite an interesting quirk of law. In 2014, the European Union introduced Regulation 650. As a result of that regulation, which Britain, Denmark and Ireland didn't sign up to, us as British residents owning property abroad or having assets abroad can put in place a Spanish will, and we can choose English law to apply to our Spanish will. So when we prepare English wills, which we prepare in English and Spanish, and are registered at the notary and then at the Central's Will Registry in Madrid, we would state in there that you choose English law to apply to your assets in Spain. Doesn't mean that you pay English inheritance tax laws. If you live in Spain and you're subject to inheritance tax in Spain, you'd pay that here. But at least under that clause, you can leave your assets to whoever you wish. UK nationals have free disposition of assets. You can leave your assets to whoever you want, whereas Spaniards do not.
Sorry, it's not a question, but I think it's really interesting. This is recent, carrying on for this. A lot of people were concerned about being able to have choice of nationality. That's what it is in your will, because leaving the EU, well, that EU directive, the naughty EU, actually made that for everybody. Not so naughty, so even if you're not an EU resident, you can still make that choice. They also applied that regulations from 2015 August for all third country nationals as well. But there's even a better thing, because on Citizens Advice we were posting about the change. You know that in Andalusia now your allowance for inheritance tax is 1 million before you pay anything. It went up in January of this year. So that's fantastic. But then on the other side, that only related to your beneficiary if they lived in a EU country. So everybody's been really upset. Well, there's just been a ruling from the law that Alex mentioned in 2014 when the ECJ, that awful European place again, said that it was discrimination for Spain to charge non-residents a higher inheritance tax, and then 4 years after that everybody could claim back. Well, only last month, following that, there's been another ruling in the Supreme Court here now, which has said that, for instance, two brothers, it happened, one living in Canada, one living here. The one living here could get the national reduction of roughly 16,000, but couldn't get the one living here, and he could also get the allowance, which then was either 175 or 250 because it kept going up. And the Canadian brother couldn't get the regional allowances. He's able to get it. So that's really good news for non-EU residents, or if you're living here and your beneficiaries in the UK will now be able to be treated the same. He will get, or she will get, or they will get that allowance, which I think is great news. And that was a ruling in February 2018, only last month. Good news.
And just to clarify, that allowance is for direct relatives, so blood relatives, okay? If you leave your assets to a non-blood relative, then they won't be entitled to that allowance. It's spouses and children only.
Okay, we've overrun so far by 5 minutes, but I'm aware that there's at least 2 more people with questions, so I'd like to speed you up, okay? So we can all enjoy a toast and some of that fabulous Manilva wine and jamón that's going to be served to you by Jesus Rubiales. So, can I have your name and who would you like to direct your question at, please?
My name.
I think you're loud enough, you don't need it.
Yes, Gary Beaumont, I have a question for the ambassador. As I and many other expats, British nationals here, were living outside of the UK for more than 15 years at the time of the referendum, I believe they were looking at changing the law regarding votes for life, and I would just like to know where I stand in case they pull another stunt like this on us.
Right. This is going slightly political territory for me. I'm a representative of Her Majesty and her government, but not necessarily of all the political parties. So you're right, and I think everybody in this room knows, and I'm well aware, the current legislation obviously does not allow you to vote in UK general elections or indeed in a referendum. I think the UK legislation only affects how you vote in UK elections as opposed to Spanish ones. But no, I recognise you are kind of doubly disenfranchised. No, I recognise that. So you will remember there was a manifesto commitment by the Conservative government in 2015, and I believe again in the elections last year to bring forward legislation to that effect. They didn't have time to bring forward legislation to end that 15-year rule in the Parliament that ended last June. They haven't yet brought forward government legislation, and frankly, given that the focus of legislation at the moment is Brexit, and particularly getting through the bills that will give the country legal continuity after our departure, there isn't currently a space in the government's legislative programme. But as you are also probably aware, one Conservative MP, Glenn Davis, who's the Conservative Member of Parliament for Montgomeryshire, if any of you are his constituents, is tabling something called the Overseas Electors Bill as a private member's bill. That is to say, he's bringing it forward as an individual member of Parliament, but in this case, it's a bill that enjoys the support of the government. So the government have encouraged their members of Parliament to vote in favour of it. Question is, and I want to be honest with you, is there going to be parliamentary time to take it forward, and if so, what's the timetable for it? So, don't want to get too much into the details of this, but as you know that a bill has to complete all the stages in both House of Commons and the House of Lords. That normally takes 9 to 12 months, but it can take longer, and then you have to get royal assent. If it does not get through that process, by June of next year, that private member's bill automatically fails, and we would have to wait for the government to bring forward legislation to the same effect. So I can't give you a guarantee, in all honesty, that the law is going to be changed in the immediate future, but it is a bill that enjoys the support of the government, and if there's time in the agenda, that's what they'll try and do.
Any more questions? It'll be the last one. Can I have your name and who would you like to direct your question at, please?
My name is Reg Winkworth. It's just very simple about our voting rights in local elections. When we leave under Brexit, will we lose not only our British voting rights, but our Spanish voting rights? That's for everybody. And was that included in the negotiations?
It has absolutely been included in the negotiations. So our position as a government was that the British government was willing to and keen to grant the continuity of voting rights in local and regional elections in the United Kingdom to those EU nationals currently resident in the United Kingdom. Yeah? The European Commission was not willing to reciprocate that measure in the European Union. And their argument, whether you like it or not, was that such a right was not derived from EU law. And I will leave that to lawyers to have their own views as to the legal basis for such an argument. So that is unresolved. So it would have to be, in this case, the Spanish government that legislated so as to give British nationals the right to vote in local and regional elections here in Spain. Now, it is true to say that there are nationals of third countries, not members of the European Union, who enjoy that right here in Spain. A number of Latin American countries, for example. And as I understand it, under the Spanish constitution, that right can be afforded to citizens of third countries where that right is reciprocal, to say, if it is applied in the UK. And we realise that pursuing this is going to be quite challenging, not least because of the timetable for getting this through, because it's not just a question of elections here in Spain, or many parts of Spain being next May, but in time for people to be on electoral rolls, or, dare I say it, candidates for election in those elections, we have to work at even greater pace. It is something that we have started to discuss with the Spanish government. We haven't, to be honest, been able to do so before because it has been a live issue in the discussions with the European Commission. And the basic rule the European Commission have imposed on everybody, all the member states, is thou shalt not discuss with the perfidious British anything that is currently being negotiated by Michel Barnier. But since he's no longer discussing it, we intend to discuss it with the Spanish government.
Okay, there will be just one more question, and that's going to be, it's not working.
I don't think it is. Should I just say? Sorry, it's not a question, it's actually a statement to qualify what we were talking about. I'm Anne Hernandez, president of Brexpats in Spain. I actually handed out a couple of papers to you earlier, one of which is a campaign that we are very honoured to be involved in, which is with the British in Europe, to try and change the Spanish law to get joint nationality for us all. And the second thing was raised today earlier at our presentation in La Cala, about campaigning to try and get the Spanish on our side a little bit more, that we are in fact allowed to vote in the municipal elections. So we wouldn't feel 100% disenfranchised from everywhere, which we are at the moment, I'm afraid, if we're not allowed to continue to vote in the municipal elections, which will be next May. So please come on board, and without you we can't do it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to finish off with just a quick few words, which, again, a lot of you that know me have heard me say it many times before, and it's based on local statistics, and also that I want to try and make you feel as comfortable as you possibly can and not really worry too much about what's going on. We'll keep you informed. We'll keep having these seminars. But the statistic that I'm going to give you, the latest statistic in Manilva, isn't much different than it's ever been when I've ever talked to any one of you before, and that is we've currently got a 16,000 population in Manilva, of which 42% is foreign, of which 42% of that approximately is British. Within that population size, which is registered, we have a total of 84 different nationalities. And as you all know, there are only 28, including the UK, in the European Union. So, my message is, even though it's not necessarily, the correct one, maybe, is that if you've got 28 countries, sovereign countries in the European Union, and we've got 84 different nationalities living comfortably and happily in Manilva of all different walks of life, different social levels of finance and work capability, I can't see that at some point this isn't going to be resolved in such a way that we're going to be any worse off than the other quantity of other nationalities that live currently in Manilva, and using Manilva as an example. So again, I'd like you, if you'd not mind, to give a special round of applause and thanks to both of our Spanish mayors, because they've sat here listening to a whole seminar of English. Okay? He pedido un aplauso para los dos haber estado aquí aguantando todo un seminario en inglés, que no es lo más normal, ¿no? Okay. Again, I'd like you to please stay seated a moment, and also the speakers, because we're going to do an official brindis, as we call them in Spain. Okay, as a thank you, if the panel can stand up. After this, all of you are going to enjoy some jamón and some Manilva wine. Okay.
Salud, ¿no? Salud por todos.
Here we go. Salud. Okay, if you'd like to, in as orderly fashion as you possibly can, and you'd like to go and be served a nice glass of new Manilva wine. It's Jan de Rosas. It's a new wine that's been produced by the Manilva grape, okay, which is Moscatel, and I think you'll find that it's a really nice wine to have, especially with meat. It's not a pudding wine, okay? So try it and see what you think, and I hope you enjoyed the evening, and thank you again all for joining us.